We are already long-standing trade and investment partners. We have a long history of trading with our African partners. We have trade and investment framework agreements. We have 11 of them, no, I think 12 now, that cover the majority of sub-Saharan Africa, African countries. We signed one with AGOA when during the Liser Summit timeframe. So we've already been doing that. We have bilateral investment treaties with Africans. And importantly, we have many, hundreds and hundreds of U.S. companies that do business in Africa, some of which have been there a long time.
My first question is on the overall dynamic between the United States and Africa. How would you deal with the fact that a country like the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is current chair of the Common Market for Eastern and Southern Africa, COMESA, is not an AGOA beneficiary?
So first of all, I think what you want to really focus on is whether or not we have any kind of trade and investment relationship with the Democratic Republic of the Congo, and of course we do. We have U.S. companies that are there on the ground investing. There is still trade that is actively going on between the United States and the DRC. The fact that they are not AGOA eligible is one element of our trade and investment relationship that we probably need to continue to focus on and need to continue to address the concerns that the U.S. government had when it made the DRC ineligible for AGOA. And we, in fact, have had some of those conversations with them, and we believe that we are making progress in addressing some of the outstanding issues that were raised at the time. And I think from the U.S. point of view, in terms of AGOA eligibility writ large, Congress, in its wisdom, put in these criteria from the very beginning. They've been there. They cut across a wide range of issues, whether it's rule of law or market opening, or it's child labor or worker rights. These are all things which have been in AGOA since the very beginning. And what we should focus on is that the vast majority of sub-Saharan African countries that are eligible, would be or could be eligible for AGOA, are in fact eligible. And that countries that have been ineligible at different points have come back into AGOA and are doing well. Cote d'Ivoire would be an example of that. Niger was out for a bit, came back in. Madagascar was out, they're back in. So we fully expect that the Democratic Republic of the Congo is going to address the issues and concerns we have, and we'll be back into AGOA. But in the meantime, we'll continue to trade, we'll continue to have a full relationship with them, and we look forward to the time when AGOA will be one piece of the larger frame of what we do with the DRC.
If you look at what's happening in Africa right now, if you look at what's happening in the United States, the US private sector, the Africa private sector, the dynamic between the different stakeholders, there seems to be a case for an effective AGOA. But what, in your opinion, is driving this? What could be at the heart of an AGOA that is more effective than the AGOA that's currently available to the Africans today?
So I think there are probably several things that drove us. First of all, we know that there have been successes under AGOA over the years. Trade has tripled. Exports of non-oil products to the U.S. under AGOA from the Africans has almost quadrupled. But we also know that that number, even though it increased from 1.2 billion to 4.9 billion in 2013, you think 4.9 billion of non-oil exports across, 40 countries? That seems like we have to also acknowledge that we need to improve and modernize AGOA in ways that hopefully will address some of the utilization issues. But we also came to the conclusion that apart from the specific ways we're recommending to Congress, because this is their baby, they are the ones that will decide what happens with AGOA. But in addition to specific ways that we thought we could improve and modernize AGOA, we really think that AGOA has to be part of a larger trade and development strategy, one that recognizes the supply side constraints on the African side and the things that have kept them from being able to fully utilize AGOA, but not just AGOA, most preference programs. And not just most preference programs, but global trade generally. Africa still accounts for only about 3% of all world trade. So yes, we want AGOA extended. We want it to be a seamless renewal. We'd like it to be a timely renewal. We'd like to modernize it to reflect that the Africa of 2014 is different than the Africa of 2000 when the bill was first passed. But we also recognize that AGOA or preferences alone are not going to be the thing that will transform Africa's engagement in the global economy. There has to be a more concerted way of addressing those supply side constraints that are, and some of the trade barriers that are causing Africa not to be able to participate more fully in the global economy.
So what would you say to those who would like to make the case for AGOA being left as is? I mean, a few years ago, the African ambassadors in Washington, D.C. were just making the case for AGOA being left as it were, the 97.5% product coverage and all the things as they were, because any change would have caused a bit of a problem. So how do you allay their fears?
Well, I think that the things that we have proposed to Congress are things that, in some cases, they think may make some sense. And if AGOA is going to be extended in the near term, we hope it will be, that this is the time to make some of those improvements to AGOA. So this is the moment and this is the opportunity. And as I said, the kinds of things that we're suggesting are not radical changes of AGOA. The core of AGOA has been there and remains pretty much the same. These are some, I don't know if you'd call them tweaks or whatever, but these are some elements where we think we can make some improvements in the program itself. But again, we are also acknowledging that whatever improvements you make in AGOA as a preference bill, a piece of preference legislation, it has to be linked to other things that both we are doing, that the Africans are doing, and that the general international community, the multilateral development banks and others are doing. We have to work together, I think, more effectively to try to help the Africans take greater advantage of the kinds of market access that they already have. When you look at the number of tariff lines that are not covered, the product lines that are not covered, I think we identified maybe 316 or so products that are not covered. And this is out of, what, maybe 10,000 tariff lines. So for us, the issue is, are there any of them? We certainly don't think that all of them would be added, largely because there are still some sensitivities. These are things that are important. We would not want to jeopardize adding a sensitive product and see AGOA come under, I wouldn't say attack, but people who would have supported it otherwise saying that, oh, wait a minute, now we don't want to support it. So I think there's a trade-off between whatever kinds of changes you can make to AGOA and then getting people to feel comfortable to pass AGOA and give it the kind of extension in terms of length that we think would be reasonable.